I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, we're back for another episode of The Truth Hurts. I'm Ayrton Woolley alongside the Duck, Wayne Carey. What have you been up to this weekend?
Oh, always an interesting weekend. Down in Mount Gambier.
The Mount?
Yeah, down the Mount. There with a mate of mine, Matt, from MB Plasterers. He gets me down there and went to a local footy club. But a little birdie tells me, before we get into that, little birdie told me there was this sort of plumpy, sort of balding sort of man that made a comeback in footy and expecting big things, and it was none other than Ayrton Woolley for the Yarraville Magoos.
Yeah, look.
How did you go?
It's all the talk out west. Long-awaited comeback. Ed wanted to play earlier in the year, but got a few stress fractures in my back. I hadn't played for about 12 or 13 years.
So you're coming up with an injury already before you start.
Hadn't played for 12 or 13 years, and about 15 kilos ago was the last time I played as well. So
that's a long time.
That is a long time, yeah. I shouldn't be playing really.
So why that long?
I had to give it up for work, for Channel 9. So I was playing till I worked there, but then weekend work and all that stuff got in the way.
So why have you all of a sudden made the decision to come back?
I obviously left Channel 9, so I've got the weekends free, and I thought, when you have these delusions of, what you once were, and, I can go around and get a kick. But it didn't take long to get reminded of, what footy's like in the reserves. I think about 2 minutes in, I got dumped downfield free, got up from that. That was fine. Then, a minute later, a little bit of push and shove, and out of nowhere, I didn't even say anything. This bloke, he goes, why does your hair start halfway back your head? So I had not said a word to this bloke, and he's just identified. So I did what you naturally do, and I identified one of his worst features, and then
so it's become a slinging match.
Yeah.
So how many possessions?
Oh, not many. Probably only 7 or 8. I was playing deep forward, which wasn't moving particularly well. We played the top team and lost by 10 goals, so not a particularly memorable return, but. Happy that I got through and the body feels good. So that was the main thing.
Oh, well done. Well done. Are you going to play again?
Well,
or has this bloke scared you out of it?
No.
Hey?
I don't have much going for me, but I'm not scared on the football field. I'd like to say that. That's about the only thing I do have.
Well, the one thing about not working on weekends now, I get to go to Auskick with little Carter. And by the way, I just want to say to all the people that sent in messages about Carter and his problem with his leg, thank you very much. He came good. So the limp, the next day, the day after we did it last week, the next day was a little bit better. But he limped for about 5 or 6 days, and back to normal now. So very happy. Did speak to my old club doctor, Harry Unglick, and he told me that generally not much to worry about. It will come. It will get better. Generally, some sort of infection. That you can have, you can get antibiotics, or it just comes good over time.
Well, that's good to hear, because there was a lot of listeners that were very...
I'm very thankful of. But I've been loving going back to the country, as we've mentioned in the last few weeks. So Mount Gambier on the weekend, and I tell you what I've realised, great club by the way, Kangaroos Magpies. Kangaroos Magpies, right? They were playing Robe, who... a really strong club in that area. So obviously in South Australia is Mount Gambier. And what I realised, it's the country areas, they just throw up all sorts of interesting stuff. And, nicknames. Some of the nicknames this club had, it's unbelievable. Back in our day, for instance, if your name's Ayrton Woolley, you probably get called Woolsey, or something like that. You got, if your last name's Stevens, it's Steve-O, Archer, it's Arch, Shohei, it's Shohei, so they're all the normal ones. And then you generally get named after an animal like duck or horse or turtle
just on duck. For those who don't know, so duck's about, it's your strut, isn't it?
I do get a lot of people ask me why I got the nickname Duck, and it's because when I had a growth spurt and I used to waddle. So when I ran...
You're blaming your growth spurt.
I waddled.
Not because of just a little bit of confidence, arrogance?
No, it was a waddle. It wasn't a strut. It was my running gait.
Okay.
It was how I ran. But as I got older, I sort of lost it a little bit. But obviously you got blokes called Chicken, and my nephew's called Flappers. So generally what you do is then you look at someone's feature, and he got Flappers because he had big ears, right? So that's how he got Flappers. But some of these nicknames at Mount Gambier, Hogwash, Cockneck, bull jaw, weapon head.
Weapon
head. Like, just go.
What was his head like?
Who makes it look like a weapon? But you get all these anecdotes, quite fascinating. The other thing that I want to mention down there, and I love the country, like the footy teams aligned with the netball team. How's this? The Kalangadoo Magpies, A-grade netball team, have won 26 of 29 A-grade flags.
Jeez. Gee, we should be flat in the year. You didn't win it.
Talk about dominating. 9 in a row they won at one stage. So, got to meet all the locals there. What a great club they are. They also had their president. This is where things are, normally the president's, sort of be at least in his 50s or 60s or maybe even 70s, 80s, most clubs. This bloke looked about 12. Named Rhys. He came up and I actually at one stage said to him, "Oh, mate, you probably shouldn't be," because we went and we did the kids' footy, gave out some medals.
You fobbed him off
at the start of the day. Well, we then went back to the local pub and had some lunch, which a few people turned up to, and he was in there. And I actually said, "Mate, you probably shouldn't be in the front bar." And he said, "Mate, I'm the president of the club." He was 28, but he looked about 12. So, no, thank you to the footy club for getting me down there. Matt, obviously, as I said, from MB Plasterers, got me there, and it was just a great day. Kids had a ball, a lot of amber fluid, which was fun. Stood on the hill, just a great day, really good day. So that was my weekend.
Always eventful, your weekends.
Yep.
You do look pretty fresh this morning, in fairness, so that's good to see. Did you have enough energy left to stay up for the cricket last night?
No. But as I normally do, I get up. I'm an early riser, as you know. Okay. So and that's not getting home early. That's getting up early these days.
Well, it's exploded, hasn't it? The final day of the Ashes, Australia's gone up 2-0, but there was a whole lot of controversy. And I want to ask you about this. A different sport, I know, but it goes to the heart of spirit of sport. And so Johnny Bairstow, England wicketkeeper, he was batting at the time. Australia's bowling. Alex Carey, the ball's gone through, final ball of the over. Alex Carey has a shot at the stumps almost immediately. Johnny Bairstow was in his crease, but thinking it was the end of the over.
It was the end of the over.
He's walked out of his crease.
Yep.
The umpire hadn't called over, and so the ball was not dead, and so he was given out. So within the laws of the game, it was the right decision. But England are cutting up rough now. I saw the coach, Brendan McCullum, said he wouldn't have a beer with the Australians after the way they played and apparently not playing in the right spirit. What did you make of all that?
Well, before I answer this, we're going to get some nitwits that get on there and say, "Oh, stick to footy. You're not a cricket." Well, for all you nitwits out there that didn't play AFL, I respect your opinion.
Oh, you're going there.
Because we all have one. No, well, what I'm saying is, this is my opinion on it.
Yes.
And for all the people who say, "Oh, you never played cricket for Australia," whatever, you can't have an opinion. Well, if that's the case, all of you shut up. Because this is my opinion on it. I believe I didn't like it, right? And yes, the rules are the rules, and yes, it is out. I didn't like it because it was the end of the over, and most players do exactly what Bairstow did, don't they? They duck the ball.
He even put his foot back in the crease,
and then just waddled out to have a discussion about what they were going to do next. The reason why I don't have a problem though with it being given out is because I thought that the catch that Starc took on the bound, that was out. I've never seen anyone. No, sorry, Starc was bowling, wasn't he?
Starc was in the field. No, Starc took the catch.
Oh, Starc took that. That's right. I've never seen anyone catch a more clean catch. That was a brilliant catch, clean as, controlled the ball. Now, if he throws that ball in the air, that's out, and whether it goes over the fence or not, because he controlled it, throws it in the air. Well done, it's given out. He did in the motion of him sliding. He obviously grounded the ball. So under the definition of the rules, not out. Didn't hear any of the Poms saying, "Well, oh no, well he should walk," and blah blah blah. They said, "No, well they're the rules." Well, there you go. So as far as I'm concerned, it was 1-1.
Yeah,
it was 1-1.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
In terms of the definition of the rules, so both were the correct decision under the definition of the rules. So you can't complain. They can't complain about that.
I tend to agree.
It would have been completely different, by the way, if that had been given out late on the fourth day, and then how they approached the next day.
Oh, so absolutely.
Big non-decision there.
I've been a little bit torn on both of it. I don't think England can complain at all when you have like a Stuart Broad who absolutely smashed it a few years ago and he didn't walk, for instance, or even Brendan McCullum had run out. It was in a game against Sri Lanka.
Yep.
Murali. He ran him out because he was going down to celebrate with his batting partner who scored 100. So I don't think England can complain. The one with Bairstow is a funny one because you are taught to be. You are taught to stay in your crease, and it was almost immediate the Carey throw. So on the one hand, I think you got to stay in your ground. The other hand, I think, I don't love it because he wasn't attempting a run. He wasn't batting out of his crease. He was just going down to talk to his partner. Watching the Ashes, I love cricket. I love international sport. It got me. I want to go to an Ashes game. At some stage in my life, haven't got there yet. Do you have a bucket list? Do you have any sporting events or life events or places you want to go to that you?
No, the Ashes would be one that I'd want to go to at some point in time. Maybe the next one's going to be here, but maybe the one after that.
Be a good trip, wouldn't it?
Yeah, good trip. I've got a lot of mates over there at the moment, and they are absolutely having a ball. Clearly, the first two tests have been unbelievable tests, so they can't be disappointed. They've both have gone down to the wire, but I've always wanted to go. Probably to Wimbledon as well.
Surely you could organise a few cashies over there, a few little speaking jobs.
I've never been to a Super Bowl, been to heaps of games, but not an actual Super Bowl. I'd love to go to a World Series.
A bit of baseball.
A bit of baseball. I think that would be a good one. Talking about baseball, have you heard of this Japanese player? I hope I get this right. Shohei? Shohei. What is it?
Shohei Ohtani.
Ohtani.
Is that where you get? Yep.
I'm just going to
Showtime.
Showtime. They call him. I'm just going to call him So. S-O.
Oh, S-O.
Yeah. Well, it's just going to be easier to call.
His initials, righto.
His initials. Giving out nicknames, that's an easy, but it's easier than saying his name. Do you know what he did? He plays for the Angels. He actually scored. He struck out 10 batters and then scored 2 home runs himself.
So he's a bit of both.
What do you mean a bit of both? He's great at both. He's the pitcher and he's their best hitter. Like that. That's unheard of. And I had a little bit of a look through the record books. I think there's only 3 or 4 blokes that have done it in the history of the game. It's unbelievable. He's the new superstar on about 30 mil now. And what's his next contract? What do they reckon it could? Because they don't have a salary cap in baseball. One of the only sports that there is no salary cap.
I was having a look at this after you mentioned it. So he's on a 1-year, 30 million at the moment.
Which is not chump change.
No, not at all. But so contract year, he's supposedly the MVP. I don't know a whole lot about baseball, but my eyes, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. So his next deal, they estimate, could be about 550 million, obviously over a long tenure. But that's 550 mil. It's a fair bit.
So what can happen in baseball, because there's no salary cap? You know, the New York Yankees can just say to him exactly that. They can just go, bang, there you go, and come and play for the Yankees. It's quite incredible when you think about it.
When we think about AFL salaries, and we're arguing about whether blokes are worth 600,000 or 700,000, he's worth 500 million.
It's quite incredible, isn't it? So I think baseball would be a great, to go and watch a World Series would be pretty big. I've watched a heavyweight title. I've watched a bit of boxing around the world and done a bit of that, but those 3 sports for me stand out. I've had a chance to go to some big soccer games. Not a massive.
See, I'd love to go to a Premier League game. I've been to a World Cup. Love to do a Premier League game. But what about the Masters golf? Would you any interest in golf? No, not really your style. It's not your pace, is it? But it's funny because baseball's a slower, more.
Yeah, a bit more happening than golf.
Yeah, okay.
I like golf, but I like watching it on TV, and you like watching the Masters and that. But walking around 18 holes just watching blokes,
Yeah, true. No, it's fair.
To get maybe
more a TV sport.
Yep.
We'll get on to the footy now. Another really interesting weekend of matches. Finally, the bye rounds are over, so we had a full lot of games. I'm going to start with my mob, not really talking about Essendon here, but the Bombers game. Dan Houston after the siren kicked it from about maybe 55 metres in the wet. Pretty good goal.
Oh, good goal.
I can see you pulled a face
What
already.
about the hype around this goal? You got people saying it's the goal of the year. That's a stock standard kick from outside 50, almost directly in front, just makes it great kick, pressure kick, but not goal of the year. People kick those goals all the time. I know, okay, I understand under and the stage of the game and all that adds to it, but that's not anywhere near goal of the year. That's the most overhyped crap I've heard all year, that should be the goal of the year.
It is interesting. Obviously, that's come from Kane, who is Kane Corns, who's a Port Adelaide man. Jamie Elliot last year kicked the goal after the siren against Essendon.
Yep,
that
from
was
the boundary.
From the boundary. So degree of difficulty probably higher.
Degree of difficulty and also pressure taken off because you're not expected to kick it. You've got to take all of these things into account when they kick those ones from the boundary after the siren. When they go back and they're lining up, so yes, it's a great, but they understand that if they miss, the blowtorch isn't going to come on them because they're not expected to kick it. But when you're directly in front, the pressure's at a much higher level because you're expected to kick it. So take that into account when you look at these goals. But not goal of the year. You kick, 40 of those a year.
Excuse me?
From outside 50 from that position.
Oh, sorry. I just lost concentration for a second. I came back to you talking about yourself.
What does that surprise you?
I was just seeing what was coming, what I had next on the agenda, and then you're having a conversation with yourself about the goals you kicked.
If you're going to give those goal of the year, boy.
I reckon I did see what might be goal of the year actually on the weekend. It was Jamie Elliot in the game against Gold Coast, running back towards goal. He's tapped the back in play. A little bit of Jack Higgins from a few years ago, except he didn't throw it.
And that didn't get the credit. And when they say Jack Higgins threw it, he threw it to himself. Some little kids at Auskick throw the ball up before they kick it. People said that could have been a throw. No, because he was in the motion at the same time of kicking. That was I agree with you. I think for degree of difficulty, what Elliot did was unbelievable. I loved it. And to have the nous to be able to do that, very few players would even consider trying it.
Have you, going back to goals after siren, you've been involved in, I'm just trying to rack my brain, you would have been involved in one or two maybe?
Never kicked a goal after the siren other than in a final, but we already had the game won.
Oh, okay.
But I kicked it. No, but kicked plenty with seconds to go. Plenty with seconds to go to win it, or draw against Hawthorn. Kicked one from about 55 out with not long to go to make it a draw. And a few late in the game that invariably.
So what you're saying is none after the siren,
none after the siren, but plenty to win the game.
But what about have you been involved in any games? It doesn't have to be all about you.
The only game I've been involved with that kick after the siren was, and probably other than the 98 grand final loss, this is probably the only other game that I think about, and that is the great Gary Ablett Snr kicking a goal.
Oh, of course.
It would have been a draw and he kicked a goal. He's only 10 metres out.
So just to go back over that.
Thanks.
That was the day that Mick Martin was playing on him. He kept him goalless for the entire game.
He was goalless. He might have kicked one or something.
Yeah. So he kept him very quiet.
Oh, Mick.
And it just floated over.
Yeah, Mick had the better of him. Lee Tudor, floating ball in, one hand up, went back, siren went. Literally 3 seconds on the clock and the siren went. And he went back, kicked the goal. He only had to kick a point for him to go through to the grand final.
So it would have been extra time if he didn't kick the goal. At that stage, had you been thinking, were you gearing yourself up for extra time in your mind, or you just hadn't allowed yourself to think that because it was so close at that point?
Well, we'd had the draw 2 weeks prior to that against Hawthorn. So it would have been 2 draws in a row in a final. And I was cooked. I'd had a torn calf. I was absolutely knackered. So we would have played West Coast the week after in the grand final, and would have been, whether I would have got up for that game, who knows? But I do remember that. So that's the only game I remember that someone kicked a goal after the siren was to beat us.
Now, just talking about your former club, how would you? This is a bit of a loaded question here. I haven't told you about it. How would you describe your relationship with your former club at the moment? You'd say it's pretty solid
relationship. What do you mean? I don't.
Well, I was sitting with you the other day, and you got a phone call from the membership department asking you to what was it, to buy a membership or buy a seat at a table or something, or what was it?
No, I'm not sure who the young lady was.
She didn't
called. No, well, she obviously didn't have a clue who she was calling, but she was selling raffle tickets or something. And And obviously I took the call thinking this could be an important call. And when she said, "Oh, hi Wayne, can you would you mind buying some raffle tickets in some?" And look, maybe just give me a call back. I'm okay, thank you. Well, that might have been to have a signed footy of the current team, which I'm not sure is that high a value. But yeah, I don't think she had any idea who she was calling. I think she had a list to go through who was ever on her.
Wayne from South Yarra or wherever you live in Brisbane.
Yep. And you got a lot of joy out of that, didn't you?
I found that very funny. I'll live on that for a while. Since we spoke last week, we spoke about the Hall of Fame last week. A big response in regards to your comments about Ben Cousins. A lot of support from people in your suggestion that Ben should be in the Hall of Fame. He's not still. One man who is not a player, but someone who's been really closely aligned with your career in many ways is Bruce McAvaney. Just a few words on Bruce, because incidentally, Channel 7 was promoting the 40 years of Friday night football on the weekend. So you've been a big part of
one another's lives. Yeah. Well, I love Bruce McAvaney. We've said on this show, I reckon it was one of our first shows that we did, we spoke about how I rate Bruce. He's just a beautiful man, wants to make everyone better around him. All sports, his knowledge, you just knew everything. You loved having a conversation with him. Absolutely brilliant. And I've always felt that he's just a very good judge. Very, very good judge.
So for those who didn't hear Bruce, that's because he said he thought you were the best player he'd commentated. That's what he said?
I'm not sure. Is that what he said?
You know exactly what he said. So how did North Melbourne become so Friday night is the marquee slot now that
it's Broadway.
Every team wants for the Friday nights for exposure for their sponsors, all that stuff.
So back then they didn't.
Yeah. So how did North become the Friday night king, so to speak?
Oh, obviously, key people at North Melbourne at the time said they wanted to play Friday night footy. Whether they had, clearly they did. They had a vision that that's where they thought this game would become the marquee, the Broadway game of the weekend, and invariably it did, and it coincided with arguably the greatest call of the game seen, and we were playing a really exciting brand of footy. So it really married well, and we in the end we were lucky. I think in '98 we 14 Friday night games for the year.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. That's and great games. Main reason for great games because you got the rest of the weekend off.
Yeah, well, I have heard that the Friday night football's coveted by the players because you get an extra day to yourself. How did you going from night games, because the grand final's always in the daytime? Was there ever an adjustment going from those night games to day footy that time of year?
Well, I do say that the only reason or excuse that we may have had in '98 was after half time. Clearly poor kicking cost us the grand final, but after half time we wilted, and it was a 22-23 degree day, I think, swirly. Whether that had an effect on us, I don't know, but I know that the lead up to that day grand final, we played all our finals in the night leading into it, and then obviously and once again I don't know, and I don't know whether the Crows had a similar lead in. I haven't looked at theirs, but looking for excuses rather than poor kicking, which I was a culprit of.
Yes, we won't back over that one. Melbourne on the weekend, disappointing loss to GWS, very inaccurate. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here. A few weeks ago, I brought up a few concerns about the D's. I don't think they're going that well, and it's happened in the last few weeks. So well done, Ayrton. Bit of third person work there.
Well, bad kicking is bad footy. I had an opportunity early to not necessarily put it to bed, but put real pressure on. They weren't able to do that. The other thing I've got a little bit of a bugbear with, and we did this a lot during the '90s, but it never cost us. Never cost us playing in the finals because we were a pretty consistent, good team. So when we got, we were sold to Canberra, to Sydney, so we were playing games all over the place, during that period. And obviously able to still play finals footy. I've got it when you're contending, and this is what teams like Melbourne and the Bulldogs, obviously Ballarat and different places around the country, and Darwin, and if you're contending, selling these games to these places could cost you a top 4 or even a finals place. Now, what's worth more money? If you play finals and you win a final or two, or taking that money for selling it up there but losing that. It's that fine line, isn't it? Clearly, if you go up there and it's become a fortress for you and you are winning there because you've played more than the other teams there, then do it. But when it becomes a 50-50 game, and look, bad kicking invariably costs them the game, but I still have a real concern with teams selling games when they're contending.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Melbourne, you'd think at the MCG against GWS. I mean, admittedly, GWS have been pretty good in recent weeks, but you'd think they get the job done in Melbourne. I just before we get off our footy topics from the weekend, and while I'm on the self-congratulations, my man Mitchy Owens kicked another 4 goals on the weekend a few weeks ago. Just keep watching him for the Rising Star. He's been brought in a couple of dollars for the Rising Star, so I want your support by the end of the season.
The problem, and being very good, he's just, unfortunately, he's got 2 absolute guns. Sheasel has been, great considering where North Melbourne are at, and Ashcroft, I mean, he's a star already.
Yeah, absolutely. Jai Amos, of course, the other one, a key forward who's doing quite well.
Warlord, who's, going okay.
Yeah, another North Melbourne bloke. Yeah, no worries. Just going to get out our listener feedback from our last couple of episodes, and we got a huge response to your top 10 toughest footballers since you debuted in 1989. I'm not going to read out all the comments because there's hundreds of comments, but watching Archer go at it even late in his career was incredible. Gave the full bottle to every contest, fast and physical every single time. Some others that we didn't mention, this is from the Gooch. I think Tom Lonergan continually playing after losing a kidney is about as tough as you can get. He's one bad knock away from
who sent that? Gooch?
The Gooch Inc.
The Gooch Inc. I wonder if that's Brad Scholl.
Maybe yours.
I used to call Brad Scholl the Gooch. And you know who the Gooch was? Different Strokes. Did you old enough to watch Different Strokes?
No, mate. No, different.
So little Arnold went to school and there was a bully called the Gooch. He came home. The Gooch was picking on him, and I said Brad Scholl was a bully, so I used to call him the Gooch. I wonder if that's him, because obviously an North Melbourne Geelong player. He might go under that name just to make these sort of comments.
You'll have to check with him.
But he's right. Tommy was a courageous player.
Some Silver. Love watching Archer and Kelly go about their footy. Daniel Kerr was also very tough with the punishment he took.
I agree with that. And part of that unbelievable midfield. So he was runner-up in the Brownlow twice, Kerr.
Yeah, very, very good player as part of that midfield. And we did touch on those midfields. This is from Brian. There's one other guy who'd been in my top 10, Gavin Wanganeen. Now, you had big raps.
Just on Kerr, some people thought that my middle name should have been Kerr. Wayne Kerr.
You're comedian, absolute comedian. Gavin Wanganeen, you did at one stage, I believe.
I had him in my list.
Yes.
And I thought for his build, and I think I might have mentioned it to you while I was doing the list. I said, Wanganeen, the way he threw his body around, no doubt. He's in the argument, and that's why it's argumentative. It's opinion-based.
And just before we move on off that topic, one more name that did come up a few times. This is from Steve. Really enjoyed this one. I don't care much for Carlton, but I would have had Greg Williams ahead of Hayes or Dangerfield. Love watching him play.
Did have Diesel in my list as well. The Diesel gave out a fair bit, but copped a fair bit back. So I love the fact, he was, he was in the argument. We spoke about him. Got tagged every week. Had guys like Denham and these guys just hanging off him, Libba. So he was very tough, Diesel. Never took his eyes off the ball. The cold face.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again to everyone who's...
Hang on. I wanted to talk a little bit more about...
Oh, what have I forgotten?
No, the one topic that we haven't discussed.
Oh, no, what have I missed?
I just wanted to finish on I think that this year is the most open year that we've had for a long time.
Oh, of course.
Most open year. I really do. You look at all the results. Collingwood, sitting on top of the ladder, they've beaten Adelaide, who are fighting for a spot in the 8 by 1 and 2 points respectively. A lot of people had Adelaide low. Yes, they've improved. But that tells you how close this competition is. There's only, I remember back to 2016, the Bulldogs won from outside, the top 4. And their run, and the luck that they got when they went to Perth, got players back because of the bye, all of those things. But that patch of form that they had players that played above themselves.
Just built this momentum, didn't they?
Just unreal. Well, one of the greatest premierships I've seen. I think that can happen again this year. I don't think the top four have anywhere near the advantage that they've had in recent years. So I think, I think it's really, really wide open. And I think the results are showing us that. We know about Brisbane's flaws, and that is away from home, at home, unbelievable. Get here. So it is wide open, this premiership. If you finish 8th, I reckon you can win it.
Oh, that's
luck with injuries, a bit of luck with other aspects of the game, and and form at the right time. I'm really looking forward to the final series. I know it's still a fair way off, but very exciting if you're a team and you make the 8 this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, the top 4 as it stands. St Kilda, Western Bulldogs, Adelaide, Essendon, the 8. But then you've got teams like Geelong, GWS, 9th, 10th, Freo.
You wouldn't want to meet Geelong. You wouldn't want to if you just met them and they finished 8th, 7th.
Especially if they got everyone fit.
They get everyone back. Exactly right. I mean, look at St Kilda sitting 5th on the ladder, and they beat West Coast by 8 points. West Coast have been getting flogged. So it's just not there's not a bigger gap as what we all think.
Great thought to finish on, Duck. Sorry I left you hanging there with your topic of the week.
That's all right.
Good luck. Maybe.
By the way, you know what's happened?
Not good luck.
I'm not going in for surgery.
Oh, you're not going in for surgery anymore.
So we've been talking about me going in for my shoulder replacement, and that is no longer happening tomorrow. Guess why? Because Dr. Surgeon Greg Hoy, who is the guru.
Very renowned, yes.
Very renowned. He is on a plane flying back last night from Mount Gambier. I get a message from his PA, and she says he's not feeling well. So he's not I would prefer him to pull out, let's be honest, if he's not feeling so well and we're about to go into have an operation. So right now it's up in the air. So I'm not sure. Everything happens for a reason.
This shoulder might never get done. Weren't you meant to get this done last year? This has been an ongoing saga.
I know. So anyway, maybe I mightn't have come out. So, that's what I think. Someone might be looking down saying it wasn't your time to go in there.
Everything happens for a reason. That might be.
It has stuffed me diary up though.
Might be.
I had everything planned around going in tomorrow, and then having a good full week of lying in bed watching some movies and some series.
Who knew you were such a deep thinker? Good to see you again. That's another episode of The Truth Hurts.